Welcome, everyone. If you've been looking for a deep dive that treats esoteric knowledge with the seriousness of a military intelligence report, you are definitely in the right place.
Uh,
Today, we are tackling a source material that is, well, it's unlike any we have ever encountered.
it really is.
It's a text so detailed, it reads not just like a spiritual map, but like a complex, meticulously written operational manual.
An operational manual for high-level occult practice and strategic spiritual warfare. That's exactly what it is.
So that's our mission today, right? To approach this thing with a certain academic rigor.
Precisely. Our source material, Mapeamento de Porte, Guerra Espiritual y Spiritus Territorias. It presents a framework that is just startling in its structure.
It's the structure that's so compelling. It treats concepts that, most people would just dismiss as mythological or metaphorical.
Things like dimensional portals and territorial spirits.
Exactly. And it treats them not as abstract ideas, but as functional, measurable, and geographically tied elements.
Right, as part of a vast, centralized, and centuries-old global strategy.
So to be clear for everyone listening, we are not just summarizing beliefs here.
No, not at all.
We are conducting a thorough analysis of this document. We're going to unpack the author's precise claims about, dimensional physics?
Dimensional physics, the rigid, structured hierarchy of the entities it describes.
And most critically, the explicit, non-negotiable requirements for authority needed to successfully engage with this sphere.
The goal is to systematically analyze its claims, understand the rigorous categorization, the specific rules governing this claimed network, and then draw out the strategic implications.
For those who operate within this specific worldview.
Exactly. We're trying to understand the depth of planning involved in this claimed unseen war.
Okay, so let's unpack this operational manual. Where do we start? The foundational mechanism, I guess. How are these dimensional accesses? How are they even established?
Well, the source asserts that these entries, or Windows Janelas, they're not accidental at all. They are the cumulative result of centuries of focused contact.
Centuries.
And specific ritualistic actions. They're called rites of opening portals, or ritos de abertura de porte.
And the key element here is who is performing these rites, right? It's not just anyone.
No, not at all. They're referred to as men of hierarchy, alta hierarchia, within what the source explicitly terms the familia de adoradores do diablo.
The devil-worshipping family. So we're not talking about amateurs or, sporadic local cults. This suggests a very organized, lineage-based system.
Yes, with a shared accumulated body of knowledge passed down through generations.
So what is the cosmic consequence when these specific rites are successfully executed by this high hierarchy?
The consequence is the liberation of specific, very high-ranking entities.
Okay.
These are the territorial spirits, the Espiritus Territorias, and the source makes a crucial distinction here. It identifies these spirits specifically as high-level principados y potestades.
Rulers and authorities within the demonic hierarchy.
Precisely. The text makes it absolutely clear that the job of holding territory and opening these dimensions, it belongs exclusively to this elite class of spirits.
That distinction regarding rank is crucial. So the lesser demons presumably are just secondary actors in this model.
ER.
But what does liberation actually mean in practical terms? How does the presence of a territorial spirit change the spiritual access to that region?
This is where the source provides a really invaluable nuance. It's about the shift in demonic access.
Okay.
Prior to a portal opening, any demonic activity or interaction was largely confined. A demon could only act during a ritual, and only within the physical, consecrated space where that ritual took place.
So a specific temple, a single room, it was event-based and spatially limited.
A kind of limited visitation pass, you could say.
Exactly.
But once the window, the dimensional portal, is opened, that constraint just vanishes. The territorial spirit gains a permanent, full-time presence and is considered liberated or libertado.
So it's not just visiting for the ritual anymore.
No. This entity now has freedom of action across the entire region connected to that portal. The spirit is no longer confined to the consecrated room itself.
Okay, so that helps us grasp the gravity of the shift. If we use the source's implied analogy, before the window, the demon was kind of stuck at a consecrated altar in one room.
Right.
But once the portal is open, it moves from being a restricted hole in the ceiling accessing that one room
to the high-ranking entity having general access to the whole apartment or even the whole floor.
It's a total change in scope. The spirit essentially acquires the title deed to the region.
That's a great way to put it. They get a general mandate for strategic action rather than a limited ritualistic one.
And this whole framework, it necessitates a continuous exchange, right?
Right.
A kind of contract.
It's described as a beneficial contract. The entities, the demons, they grant complex operational knowledge, hidden wisdom, specific insights.
To the human practitioners.
Yes. And in exchange, the demons receive the most valuable commodity of all, guaranteed, permanent freedom of action and territorial presence.
But the source mentions an even more unusual reward for the human participants, the ones it calls the Sons of Fire.
The Philos do Fogo.
Yes, it says the Genios, the highest level entities, they grant these selected humans something that completely redefines the concept of dimensional travel.
They grant literal physical access to these dimensions.
Oh.
And the source is extremely emphatic here. This is where the cosmology just departs radically from standard mysticism. It is specifically not a spiritual journey. It's not like astral projection.
The desdobramento, as it calls it.
Exactly. This isn't the spirit leaving the body.
Wait, a literal physical trip? This moves beyond conventional spiritual warfare doctrine into something closer to, I don't know, science fiction or physics.
It really does.
Does the source offer any explanation of the mechanics? I mean, how is the human body physically transferred without being destroyed by a change in dimension?
It remains pretty vague on the exact physics, I have to say. It acknowledges that the other dimension operates under completely different laws. The text offers a quick descriptive comparison, likening the feeling to being sucked by a black hole and exiting on the other side.
But it's not actually a black hole.
No, it immediately clarifies that the windows are not literal black or white holes. The comparison only serves to convey the violent, physical nature of the passage. The body itself is displaced.
So if we continue with that architectural analogy, the dimensional portal isn't some spiritual staircase in the clouds.
Not at all.
It's a fully operational, physical elevator parked on the 4th floor, allowing the physical body to step out of the terrestrial sphere of reality and into another one.
That's the foundational premise. These portals are operational, physical access points designed for high-level demonic and human cooperation, not just spiritual symbols.
So having established the mechanism, let's turn to the inventory. The permanent portals.
The source is surprisingly precise here. It details a fixed and finite number.
Which is?
There are exactly 90 permanent windows, the Janellus Permanentes.
90. That's a very specific number. And the majority, the source notes, have been open for ages, right? Woven into historical global strongholds.
They have. But the text gives us a recent calculated schedule for the completion of this network.
Right.
It provides a snapshot of the last few decades leading up to the writing of the text. So about 10 to 12 years prior, 72 of the 90 were confirmed open.
Which suggests a highly calculated plan, not just random expansion.
Exactly. They were achieving a critical mass of openings. And the source notes that opening the final remaining windows is exponentially more difficult.
Why? What does it require?
It requires ritualistic knowledge to be perfectly combined with astrological and astronomical knowledge.
Ah, so the celestial timing becomes just as important as the ceremony itself.
It becomes paramount. This suggests that the final phase of this strategy requires a kind of precision occult science. Astrology, specifically, is used to identify the moments of perfect cosmic alignment needed to force these final breaches.
And here the source introduces an interesting theological caveat.
It does. It posits that God, being the sole Lord of the universe, ultimately controls the timing of these cosmic phenomena.
So God is still in control of the schedule, in a way.
That's the framing. Therefore, he determined that the final, most complex openings would be reserved for the final dos tempos, the end times.
Which frames the completion of the 90 portals as a definitive signpost for the beginning of the endgame.
Exactly.
And that brings us to the highly specific timetable the source lays out. It's almost like a prophetic schedule.
It is. It details that 9 more windows were slated to open in 2006, bringing the total to 81.
Okay.
And the final 9 were scheduled for 2013, completing the full set of 90.
That rapid, scheduled acceleration, it implies that the last entities being released are exponentially more powerful.
Yes, coming from the very depths of the abyss, the Masmorra. It's a tiered release based on an escalating power level. The entities released in 2013 would possess authority far exceeding those released in antiquity.
And beyond just facilitating entry, the passage through these permanent windows, It's considered a special honor, right? Reserved for a select few.
Usually high priests, the sumo sacerdotes. And the primary stated objective of this physical passage is it's exceptionally dark and specific.
What is it?
Reproduction.
I have to say, that is probably the most difficult claim in the source material to process.
It is. The text claims the objective is to generate genetically altered children for the service to Lucifer.
Ow.
The biological relationship, the source explains, happens in the other world, guided by those alternate dimensional laws, and it's facilitated by high-level entities identified as succubi and incubi.
And it requires both the man and the woman to pass through the portal to complete the process. It's a physical act.
Yes. So this isn't just symbolic impregnation or, spiritual adoption. The claim is one of literal genetic alterations passed down through a physical act facilitated in a non-terrestrial dimension.
And what's the purpose of these genetically altered children?
The source states they are instrumental in ancient traditions. Specifically, they're used in fertility rituals, a concept the text traces back to deep antiquity.
So the core intention is the direct corruption and alteration of the human bloodline for demonic purposes.
And ensuring the continuation of the high hierarchy.
And given the high stakes and the required cosmic timing, I assume these passages are not spontaneous trips.
Oh no, they are meticulously programmed, often years or even decades in advance.
Wow.
Whether the participant uses a principal or a secondary window, the journey and the resulting act of reproduction are fixed points in a long-term strategic timeline.
It just reinforces this view that the Irmandade, the Brotherhood, operates on a multi-generational deterministic plan.
Where every ritual, every genetic alteration is a calculated step towards a strategic goal.
Okay, so having covered the mechanism and the purpose, we have to understand the architecture of this entire system.
Yeah.
The source calls it the Rede de Porte.
The network of portals.
How does the source model this interconnected system?
It uses a simple but really effective analogy. A house. The network is divided into two types of access points, and they reflect the hierarchy of command and flow.
First, we have the principal windows, the portas principais.
Exactly. These are the 90 main entrances to the house. They're the major gates, limited in number, that grant initial territorial access.
So once an entity crosses a principal door, it's inside the macro region.
Correct. But the system is expanded via the secondary windows, the Janella Secundarias.
Which function like entrances to specific rooms within the house.
Like bedrooms, offices, bathrooms. You get the idea.
So the secondary windows are the local distribution network. They allow the territorial spirit, once they've cleared the principal door, to set up shop or transit freely to specific localized areas.
And it establishes a necessary chain of transit. A demon only reaches a secondary window territory after successfully passing through the principal door.
That's critical for understanding the flow of authority. The principal portals determine the entry point for the major entities, the Principados.
While the secondary portals determine the effective reach and operational density of the lower-level post-80s throughout that region.
And the text then applies this geographical model specifically to Brazil. It claims a uniform coastal entry strategy. Why the coast?
The source provides a mythological and geographical rationale for that. It claims that all entries of demonic entities into Brazil come via the coast because the primary principality reigning over the nation is Leviathan.
Leviathan, associated with the ocean.
Exactly. And the most powerful imprisoned demons, the ones coming from the Masmorra, the dungeon or abyss, are hypothesized to originate from the oceanic depths. The deep sea is used metaphorically for the inferior dimension.
That makes the coastal rule an operational necessity tied to the reigning spirit. And the source identifies three major principal doors on the Brazilian coast.
Yes. Rio de Janeiro, Florianopolis, and Salvador.
And while the source focuses on the coast for Brazil because of Leviathan, it does acknowledge this isn't a universal rule, right?
It does. It points to historical examples, specifically mentioning the ancient pyramids and deserts, as proof that inland portals certainly exist. But for Brazil's initial macro entry strategy, the coast is the priority.
The text then details an incredibly specific transatlantic connection, mapping the main hub of activity with geopolitical and astronomical precision. Let's trace this line.
Okay, so the major portal line originates in Philadelphia, USA.
Philadelphia. That's a staggering detail. Does the text give any insight into why Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, the birthplace of American democracy, is the originating point for this?
It links it to historical and occult significance. The implication is that the founding of the city itself was consecrated long ago.
Okay.
Deep, ancient consecration tied to specific rites of this hierarchy.
So it's a strategic choke point, a staging area.
A massive staging area linked to North American occult power. And from there, it enters the Atlantic, passes near the Caribbean, and critically, crosses the infamous Bermuda Triangle region.
Which the source identifies as what? A dimensional whirlpool.
Something that amplifies the transit flow. Yes. From there, it angles precisely 32 degrees west at the equator before it approaches the Brazilian coastline.
So from the Bermuda Triangle, it follows that precise coordinate angle until it hits Brazil. Which of the 3 Brazilian entry points is the most critical?
The entrance line that passes directly through the center of the city of Rio de Janeiro, positioned exactly at the Tropic of Capricorn. That's identified as the most vital one.
And once the entities cross this principal door in Rio,
They circulate freely via the galleries of secondary windows across the entire country, fulfilling what the source calls Satan's documented strategic plan to saturate the territory.
the source also gives us crucial rules about territorial control and residency. These entities aren't just passing through, they're establishing roots.
Precisely. Territorial spirits are like landlords. Once they're established via the principal window, the source claims they acquire literal title deeds to the place, whether it's a city, a region, or a whole country.
And those deeds impose a constraint.
A big one. They generally cannot leave their place of dominion unless under extremely rare or special circumstances.
This is a significant operational limitation. The source confirms that only Satan is free to traverse the entire earth at will.
Right. Even great princes only move when seasons change or under extreme urgency, and when they do, they have to leave a high-level esquire in charge, ensuring the territory remains governed.
So the vast majority are geographically bound.
To illustrate the complexity, the source gives a specific example for the city of São Paulo. It notes that the main portal there is located in a completely separate geographical area from a subbase.
Where is it?
This specific portal is situated deep in the earth, within an underground crypt or cavern that was painstakingly excavated in the rock and consecrated specifically for the purpose of maintaining a dimensional window.
So these are hidden, highly engineered physical locations, strategic assets. Okay, let's shift now from the fixed permanent network to the second category. The temporary portals, the Janellus temporarias. These sound much more elusive. How do they differ from the 90 permanent windows?
Fundamentally, they're dynamic. If the permanent portals are the static, guaranteed elevators that are always accessible with the right password, the temporary portals are in constant motion and are never in the same place. They're fleeting moments of dimensional access, not fixed geographical locations.
So the secret here is timing, not real estate.
Exactly.
The source uses a wonderful analogy, the Jura, or carousel, to explain the complex physics of synchronization required.
Let's break that down slowly because it seems to define the whole operation.
Absolutely. Okay, so visualize a spinning carousel, the Jura. This represents the Earth existing in the 4th dimension.
Got it.
Now, you surround that carousel with a completely separate wooden cylinder or ring that is spinning in the opposite direction. And importantly, at a non-constant velocity, this outer ring represents the surrounding universe or scenario. Okay, so the Earth is spinning one way, the universe is spinning the other way, and there's a catch.
There is only one small window cut into this outer cylinder.
Okay, so what is the condition for passage?
A passage is only possible when there is a single perfect point of synchronization, an exact encage perfecto, as the text says, between the spinning carousel and the small window in the counter-spinning cylinder.
You can only jump through at that one precise moment.
And if you calculate the timing incorrectly, going too early or too late, you hit the wooden cylinder with, catastrophic results.
So the whole secret of temporary portals boils down to finding that one infinitesimally small moment. It's occult timing, taken to the level of rocket science.
It is. The Earth spins constantly, but the surrounding cosmological scenario changes, creating these momentary dynamic alignments that have to be perfectly intercepted.
And because the timing is everything, the calculations must be exponentially complex.
The source details that the knowledge required is a triangulation of Kabbalah, the mystical numerology, astronomy, and astrology. You need all 3 to pinpoint the exact moment of perfect synchronization.
Which means a temporal window can open literally anywhere. Inside a house, in a forest. The location is secondary. The critical factor is the exact moment of alignment above that point on Earth.
The second analogy the source uses really drives this home. It relates it to the abyss or the dungeon. Imagine a deep-sea trench, the Masmorra, covered by an invisible dome.
Okay.
A temporary channel can only be forced through that dome at the precise moment of solar noon Meodia for that specific point on the planet. Any minute before or after, the force field is impermeable.
That truly highlights the surgical precision involved, which leads directly to the rites and purpose.
And since timing is everything, the secrets are contained within tremendously specific rites and ceremonies, sometimes involving unique instruments or highly complex movements.
And the knowledge of when and where these fleeting portals will appear, that's not something you can just look up.
No, it's determined by revelation from the demons themselves. And that revelation is only granted to priests and high priests.
And it's tied to cyclical phenomena.
Eclipses, planetary alignments, seasonal changes. Some might open daily at a hyper-specific moment, others only once every decade.
And there are unique operational constraints for these temporary portals, reflecting their purpose.
Yes. They only allow human passage. Demons are not coming up through these. Also, only one human can pass at a time, single file.
This is the critical distinction, isn't it? The purpose. These portals aren't for liberation.
No. Humans are traveling down to the dungeon region, the Masmorras, to meet demons who are imprisoned and not yet permitted to enter the terrestrial dimension.
So the humans are acting as proxies or conduits. What's the reward for the human who takes this monumental risk?
The source views this passage as a type of baptism. The chosen person receives special, unique powers directly from these imprisoned high-level demons.
And those specific powers are then manifested on Earth through the human vessel, even though the entity itself remains trapped in the abyss.
It's an investment strategy for the Irmandade.
Given the reliance on cosmic timing, how does the duration of the trip work? The window on Earth is only open for a few minutes, right?
Right. But the human needs time for the ritual and the baptism.
So how does that work?
This is handled by a profound space-time distortion. For any terrestrial observers, the window is open for a minimal time, maybe 2 or 3 minutes.
But for the person who crosses over?
The passage itself warps space-time, leading to the impression that many hours, perhaps a full day or more, have passed.
Which explains the high stakes. The human has to return precisely when that incase perfetto occurs again, just minutes later in our time.
Exactly.
Okay, so having comprehensively mapped this complex, organized cosmology, the source now pivots to its strategic so what?
Yes. The primary goal of revealing all this information isn't just theological curiosity. It is so that the faithful can finally assimilate the different levels of spiritual battle.
And the resulting critique of common spiritual practices is utterly devastating.
It is. The source heavily criticizes what it calls prideful, symbolic, and ill-timed methods of warfare.
It specifically targets actions that, often dominate public ministry.
Saying they're totally ineffective against the realities of territorial spirits. Examples cited include the ritualistic marching 7 days.
A clear reference to trying to symbolically conquer cities based on a literal reading of Joshua and Jericho.
Right. It also dismisses Daniel's fasts or relying solely on reciting biblical cliches like, no evil shall befall your dwelling, without understanding the structure of authority.
And it particularly attacks the concept often termed strategic-level spiritual warfare, the idea that you can conquer cities just through general shouting, clapping, or performing loud public demonstrations.
The source is categorical on this. The results of such efforts are zero, or often worse, leading to severe retaliation.
It frames these activists as, what was the term? Bancando los bobos.
Playing the fool. Because the territorial spirits, the principados y potestades, they just sit back, watch the display from their permanent accredited position, and laugh at the futility of it all.
And the reason for this futility links directly back to the permanent portals.
Yes. Opening a dimensional window, according to this text, is the highest possible consecration of a territory to the devil. This grants the maximum possible authority and legal mandate to the established territorial spirits.
Therefore, attempting to confront or chase away these spirits without the corresponding mandate is not just foolish.
It's an act of presumption, guaranteed to result in the attacker being put to flight. To successfully engage a territorial spirit, the human operative requires a credential of suitable, equivalent, or higher rank.
This concept of required rank is the absolute conceptual anchor of the source's entire argument on combat. We need to spend a moment on the analogies it provides.
Let's start with professional authority. The source gives 3 perfect examples. Only the account holder can sign a check. Only the director of an institution can sign a diploma. Only the cardiac surgeon can perform heart surgery.
A true signature requires the right person with the correct authority.
Exactly. A falsified signature, no matter how perfectly copied, has zero legal or operational value because the requisite authority is absent.
So the spiritual operation, the command, the decree, is equivalent to signing a check. If you don't possess the title of account holder granted by the divine director, your signature is meaningless.
And this links directly to the concept of unsound, or anointing, in the source's lexicon. Unsound here is not a feeling or an emotional display.
It's administrative, executive authority.
Yes, granted by God to perform specific, high-level tasks. A person may have excellent faith or passion, but if they lack the specific credential or the corresponding anointing, they are, in essence, signing a falsified signature on a dimensional contract.
The political authority analogy makes the stakes even clearer.
It does.
Shouting at the president of Brazil to leave the Palace of Planalto is utterly ineffective. You'll just get arrested.
Right. But if, hypothetically, the President of the United States arrives with an army and invades, forcing the local leader out, that action is different.
Because the invading party possesses a higher level of global strategic authority.
In the spiritual context, this higher authority is necessary because the territorial spirits hold those title deeds granted via the permanent portal. They are the established government. To challenge them requires an unsung that surpasses their jurisdictional mandate.
And the consequence of ignoring this rule, of using false authority, is twofold.
First, the outcome is zero. The strategic warfare is futile. Second, the source warns, these individuals actively poke the hornet's nest, losing divine protection because they step outside their divinely mandated role and act presumptuously.
Which displeases God.
And it guarantees catastrophic spiritual retaliation from the territorial spirits who are now provoked but completely unthreatened. The source says this results in them falling off the horse and never being able to ride again.
This intense critique of combat leads us to the ultimate strategic dilemma. Can these portals, particularly the 90 permanent ones, actually be closed once they are established?
The cosmological reality presented by the Irmandade and acknowledged by the source is, well, it's deterministic and grim.
Which is?
Once opened, permanent portals cannot be closed by human means. The only entity capable of achieving this feat is the returning Christ a volta de Jesus. This paints a picture of irreversible escalation.
Which means the world is expected to become increasingly decadent and controlled by the Irmandade until the Antichrist's government is fully installed, leveraging this network of 90 portals.
And if that's the reality, it completely changes the goal of spiritual work.
It forces a massive strategic pivot.
The source dictates that the primary achievable task of believers is to maintain the bride, Igreja, pure, clean, and immaculate. The goal is explicitly not to restore or conquer cities, which is an impossibility given the permanence of the principal doors.
So the fight shifts from offense against the gates of hell to defense of the church itself.
Exactly. However, the source does offer a caveat, a crucial sliver of hope. It says God will raise up specific, highly trained warriors or soldiers of the last days army to close some portals. But even this action is constrained.
How so?
This authority is granted not for the sake of the cities or for territorial conquest, but for the sake of the bride. It's a tactical intervention to protect the faithful, not a strategic victory over the adversary's stronghold.
And the authority conferred will only extend to closing secondary windows, and only a select few of them.
The explicit, limited intention is to hinder the demonic transit in specific regions.
So it's designed to give the church breathing room, a full Lego, as the source puts it.
A momentary period of relief and recovery to make wise decisions and regain strength. But the source is unwavering on the limitation. Principal portals cannot be closed by men. The only targets are the secondary galleries.
Hindering the flow, not conquering the house itself.
Precisely.
And the cost of this limited tactical authority is astronomical.
The text warns that if God intends to commission individuals to close even secondary portals, the price paid by those chosen will be extremely high.
What does that mean?
It demands specialized protection and a lifestyle defined by intense training, absolute obedience, mortification of the flesh, and unfailing love for the Father.
This authority is not something you get at a weekend seminar.
Or earn through years of generalized ministry? No. It is a specific, divinely directed task requiring a level of singular dedication that very few are willing or able to give. Simplistic attempts without this price being paid will just result in failure and the loss of divine protection.
And to solidify this whole thesis, that temporary tactical victory is meaningless against the permanence of a dimensional window, the source provides a detailed historical case study: Elijah and Israel.
This is the historical validation point for the entire cosmological model. On Mount Carmel, Elijah achieved a monumental tactical victory over the prophets of Baal,
And the source interprets Baal not as a single deity.
but as an acronym for the great princes of hell: Beelzebub, Asmodeo, Astaroth, and Leviathan. This means Elijah was fighting a coalition of territorial spirits right at a principal door.
The tactical victories were undeniable. The people temporarily repented, the Baal prophets were killed, the drought ended.
He was a massive demonstration of God's power and Elijah's unselm, his anointing. But the source tracks the long-term historical outcome through the books of Kings. And Israel, as a nation, did not fully repent.
Even successor kings like Jehu, who was instrumental in ending the reign of Ahab and Jezebel, maintained the golden calves out of political fear.
So the core wickedness remained rooted. The nation continued its trajectory towards destruction and exile.
So the ultimate conclusion is the most profound lesson the source offers, even with Elijah's monumental prophetic anointing and his tactical victory.
The dimensional window continued to be open. Satan triumphed in the long run because the territorial spirits, the Baal princes, had established their permanent control via that portal long before Israel was even a nation.
The source says it plainly. Elias enfrentó os demonios, mas a janela dimensional continuava aberta.
Temporary victory does not equal permanent conquest if the main portal remains active and accredited. The lesson for the contemporary faithful is clear. If the effort of one of the greatest prophets in history couldn't close the primary entrance,
Then modern, less anointed efforts focused on conquering cities are misguided and fail to understand the fundamental mechanics of dimensional authority.
exactly.
Wow, that was an exhaustive analysis. We've systematically gone through a complete operational spiritual map today.
We have.
From the specific number of 90 permanent portals and their dark reproductive purpose, to the high-stakes geopolitical network running from Philadelphia through the Bermuda Triangle and into Brazil.
We broke down the bizarre physics of the Jira-Jira analogy for temporary portals and explored the complex calculus required for that occult timing.
And we ended with the critical takeaway.
Yeah.
The entire cosmology hinges on the distinction between symbolic action and actual accredited authority.
The source consistently stresses that addressing these established high-level structures requires a level of command, obedience, and specialized anointing that few possess. It effectively declares most public strategic warfare futile.
And it redirects all focus away from conquering territories
An impossible task against permanent portals.
to ensuring personal purity and providing defense and recovery for the bride.
The implications are massive.
Yeah.
This text demands a complete reevaluation of what constitutes successful spiritual engagement.
Indeed. Which brings us to our final thought for you to consider.
Considering the source's assertion that the only viable mission for God's forces is to temporarily hinder demonic transit and ensure the purity and survival of the bride, and not to conquer cities, does this framework radically redefine what success in spiritual life looks like?
Does it demand an immediate, rigorous retreat for internal preparation and high-cost training, rather than external, low-authority confrontation? That profound question about strategic focus is what we leave you with today.